Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of Dr. Hrothgar's Professional Minarchist channel. Um, I am Dr. Hrothgar, a proposed or self-titled professional minarchist. Um, Current drawbacks for this channel. I gotta start off with a disclaimer, I guess. I have a new microphone that's on the way, so this audio may be low quality compared to stuff that you're used to. And I might not show my face for a while. I might just keep the audio and use the screen mostly for evidence, um, screenshots of articles and the like. But my credentials are I have a degree in English and a minor in political science. I started off as a political science major and then changed halfway through because I was indecisive and young. I also run a blog called Politicizely with a friend of mine from high school. Um, I'll link that in the description below if you want to check that out. So I have been commenting on political happenings and current states of the political climate for quite some time now, really since 2012, 2013. And the start of the second Obama administration. And I've been noticing now that my articles don't get a lot of traction, mostly because I don't have a large audience to project to, but also because 1,000 words is a lot to read, and the next generation in particular is going to listen to things rather than read them. And so I thought that I could speak 1,000 words in, 2 to 5 minutes, depending on how many times I pause to think. Uh, and so I would rather speak those words and add the inflection to my voice, to my inflection of my voice, and uh, possibly more clearly project the ideas that I'm going to put forth, rather than just have somebody read them and infer how I feel about these things based on my words alone, which sometimes I'm a minimalist in terms of my language when I write, so sometimes those views can come off as cold or unemotional when there is some emotion behind what I'm saying. So I thought I would take to YouTube and try and put my voice out there and see what comes of it. So I think to start, I should give a working definition of minarchism. Uh, Whenever you talk about something that has archy in its name or as a root word, uh, people immediately assume, at least that from my experience, uh, that you're talking about some sort of anarchy, and that's not what I'm talking about. Minarchism is, if you listen to it exactly as it would sound, amount of the most minimal amount of government possible. So, um, a lot of people that I talk to immediately assume that, okay, so you're a libertarian. Well, no, not necessarily. Particularly since I believe that the Libertarian Party has deviated from its original purpose as of the last two general elections, more so in the last election with the addition of Bill Weld to the ticket. Um, a lot of libertarians like to describe themselves as fiscally conservative and or socially liberal. So in the last election, we got a lot of Bernie supporters who jumped ship because they didn't believe in Hillary Clinton and the way she was operating on behalf of the Democratic Party. So, Bernie supporters are not libertarians, but they voted libertarian because they saw the uh, socially liberal aspect of libertarianism and jumped on the train. I do not believe that I am socially liberal per se, in that I believe in traditional values. You know, a man and a woman being in union as a technical marriage. But to use that as an example, I would put forth the notion that traditional marriages should not be defined by the state. So marriage licenses should not exist. Um, and that would put a lot of people off simply because of the tax benefits that come with getting a marriage license, and that was the main argument for legalizing gay marriage, or at least letting the Supreme Court define marriage as a union between two consenting adults. But I feel that if we took the government's say in marriage out, right? If we made it so the government didn't define what a marriage was and couldn't give tax benefits based on that, then it would be a non-issue, right? We could, if you just chose to be married and chose to go to a religious institution to have that ceremony and have it be official, then you would be more than free to do so. If you chose to just cohabitate and have all the benefits that come with cohabitation, such as shared expenses or sharing of expenses and raising of children in a stable environment with two spouses, again, the most stable of those environments being the union between a man and a woman, but didn't want to go to a religious institution to make the cohabitation somehow official, then you would again be more than free to do so. So it's really a worldview that I think a lot of people share, but they don't really know what it is. So there is no dictionary definition, at least that I could find on a quick Google search, for minarchism, but Wikipedia describes it broadly as a night watchman state, or a model of a state whose only functions are to provide its citizens with the military, the police, and courts, thus protecting them from aggression, theft, breach of contract, and fraud, and enforcing property laws. So I'd say that that's pretty close to what I believe. But Rational Wiki went in further, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read the whole definition so you guys don't have to do the research. Rational Wiki defines it as a political philosophy advocating the reduction of government functions to a minimum scope. That's definitely true. Providing people with only bare bones services such as law and security. It's considered a form of libertarianism. I kind of take issue with that. And since it finds some useful role for the state, it's incompatible with anarcho-capitalism. I agree with that. Unless, of course, you consider Friedman-esque voucher a bridge between, or the Friedman-esque voucher a bridge between anarcho-capitalism and minarchism. Another form of, and then it says that anarcho-capitalism is another form of libertarianism broadly. Like that's if you're trying to cast a really wide net. It says Ayn Rand's view could be described as minarchist. That's pretty much true. Minarchists advocate for a night watchman state that is not responsible for the education, healthcare, employment, or transportation of its citizens. That's again, I would agree with that. Neither makes it any use. Okay, this was badly worded. Of natural resources in its territory. All of this is instead held privately or publicly, but is never susceptible to any interference of the state, its law, or its representatives. Minarchy is, of course, different from anarchy, thank you, since the latter term means a complete absence of a government with all services, including even law and security, done or exercised by people themselves. And so I also, before I comment on the definition as a whole, um, it's the first section in that article on Rational Wiki was criticism. It says even though it was talking about how Austrian economists don't technically align with a minarchist view of the world, and I take issue with that. Um, I'd say that even though Austrian economists may not align themselves as minarchists, a lot of them do identify themselves as anarcho-capitalist, which is more radical, right? So there are Austrian economists that are more or less radical. An example of that being, you have Ludwig von Mises, which I would go so far to say, as he basically founded the idea of anarcho-capitalism, at least in the modern world. Um, and then you have people like Thomas Sowell, who's an Austrian economist that is, I believe, or Milton Friedman, that I would believe is more minarchist than anarcho-capitalist. So I believe that this ideology, minarchism, has its roots in Austrian economics and classical liberalism. So while my own views may not align with the definitions put forth by Rational Wiki and Wikipedia, I do believe in many of the core concepts that they touched on. Personal responsibility, lack of government intervention in the daily lives of its citizens, and the emphasis on the free market, right? To use their examples, healthcare, employment, or transportation of its citizens, education, those should all be left to the free market. I know that a lot of people in the country today like to say that we should catch up with the rest of the world or the rest of the civilized industrial Western world and institute a single payer health system in the United States, but that has been shown time and time and time again to actually decrease the quality of care and in some cases raise prices for people that choose to use private healthcare, which is bad and bad. Um, so I'm going to go through just a non-exhaustive but pretty close to exhaustive list of thinkers that I believe influenced my current worldview, and this is in no particular order. Some of these are modern, some of these are ancient, some of these uh, are guys that you can go search YouTube and find nowadays. Some of these are long dead. Um, but I'd say Milton Friedman, Thomas Sowell, Friedrich Hayek, Ludwig von Mises. Even though I haven't done as much reading on Mises as I have Hayek, for example. Ron Paul, more modern example. Andrew Napolitano, who is a member of the Mises Institute. Murray Rothbard, Hans Hermann Hoppe, who is a self-proclaimed anarcho-capitalist, but I do still believe that he has it right most of the time. The late Antonin Scalia, Walter E. Williams, who is a little bit more, and I know some people in my circle are going to cringe when I say this, but he's a little more statist. He does believe that the state has a right to be in more sections of personal lives of citizens than I would normally be okay with. But I do believe that he again has some very good things to say about especially race relations in the United States and how that should be part of the conversation. Thomas Jefferson, all the way back to the framing of the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. I'm a tried and true anti-federalist. If I were born back in that era, I would have ridden with Thomas Jefferson to deliver the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions. Immanuel Kant, again, I would say that my worldview has its roots in classical liberalism as well. Plato, the idea of personal responsibility and non-dependence on the state and the collective, but that you should also consider the idea of a collective, right? Um, the collective is both a strength and a weakness. Carl Benjamin, or as he's more commonly known as Sargon of Akkad, a converted leftist who saw just how crazy the left was starting to get, that is now more of a centrist. I would say if not in a physical sense, but a violent centrist. Tries to check both sides of the aisle as much as possible. And then also, I mean, Ben Shapiro has a lot of really good, rational approaches to modern politics that I believe that most people should watch, even if they don't agree with him. Steven Crowder, mostly because I agree with him on a lot of things, and he's funny, keeps things entertaining in a world that is rapidly becoming just, shout platitudes and or shout insults and virtue signal and blame the other side rather than just maybe not take yourself so seriously sometimes. Count Dankula, for the same reason, used to be kind of an anarchist and has kind of come out of the woodwork and changed his views after some of the things that have happened to him. And lastly, but surely not least, Jordan B. Peterson. I am in the process of reading his book and have watched pretty much every YouTube video that he or his supporters have put out, as well as his detractors, and tried to really pick apart what he's trying to say. He would probably be the most left of center friendly person on this list. But I do believe he is probably one of the most influential thinkers of this next era and the era that we're in right now, just because of what he's saying and how he's saying it, how he's being portrayed by the left and demonized so vehemently, and they've just taken him out of context on almost every occasion. I really don't think that any rational person can disagree with him on anything that he says. But that's for another video. Um, I'd say that for this one, that pretty much wraps it up. I don't want to go into too much detail about what I'm going to be doing with this channel because I don't want to pigeonhole it just yet. But I will try to do either weekly or bi-weekly videos, unless, I mean, there's so much content out there to comment on and to kind of synthesize and make an argument about nowadays. I might start doing daily videos if it really takes off. I have a new mic that's in the mail, which I think I already mentioned, but it's going to sound better than the one that I have right now. So I really do want to get into politics and current events and social commentary, but I also have other interests. I might talk about sports on occasion and how that relates to current events, social commentary, but also just purely sports. Music is another passion of mine that I may start to bring into the fold, and online gaming. There's a huge market for it now, and there are also some pretty after Gamergate and the Bully Hunters video that dropped maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. There's a lot of material in the gaming industry that is starting to cross over into the social commentary and current events space. And I do believe that with the noise that it's generating, it's going to start crossing over more often. So I'll try and dip into that as well. But make sure you like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and I'll see you on the next one.